How's it going? This is Matt Coplon, and this is Spoken Word episode 2. We're at Ballast Point Pier here, which is in the southern tip of the Tampa Bay Peninsula. The reason we're down here is because there's a lot of significant things that kind of play into the BMX scene here, and also some connections that we have with our guest today, which is Mark Mulville, who actually lives 2.5 hours directly east of here at Satellite Beach. And Satellite Beach is adjacent to Cape Canaveral, which is where NASA is currently. We'll have a bunch of tie-ins today to this park actually, and to NASA, and Mark's photography as well, which will all tie into this. So thanks for coming along.
For sure.
We've got a 8.3 mile ride today straight out, and then I'll be looping back. So overall it's gonna be about a 16.5 mile ride. And let's get things started. We hope you enjoy. So we're right outside the pier at, it's called Ballast Point Park now, but years ago it was called Jules Verne Park. And the interesting thing about this park, which I did not know growing up, is that the trolley line, the electric trolley line in Tampa stopped here. So the terminus was here. So out of downtown, which is about 7 miles away, the trolley would run down Bayshore, which we'll pedal soon. And the terminus was here. What I didn't realize is that this pavilion that I used to hang out under is actually the pavilion for the trolley stop. So it's wild that this was built in 1894. It's made of wood, and in Florida, for something that old made of wood is pretty phenomenal. So as you can tell, I mean, it's still the old architecture, the original architecture of that trolley stop with some new shingles on top, essentially. The reason we're here in Jules Verne Park is because Mrs. Chapin, who had the trolley line, named this park after the French author Jules Verne, who wrote From Earth to the Moon. From Earth to the Moon was written in 1865. And the correlation is that the rocket in that book took off from Tampa Town. So being that the rocket at that point took off from Tampa Town, really interesting connection there, because again, he's a French author and he's writing about the United States, specifically Florida, and specifically Tampa Bay. The really interesting connection there is that 104 years later, directly 125 miles east of here, is where Mark lives and was where the Apollo 11 mission launched 104 years later. So Jules Verne, in this really weird roundabout way, predicted the launch of the first manned mission to the moon. And again, this is where Mark comes into play today because of his connection, living over there, his photography at NASA, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and a tattoo that he actually has on his arm. So I found this the other day while I was pedaling out here, and this is a strangler fig, which you don't see too far north of here. And the wild thing about this one is that it's actually strangling out a cabbage palm. As you can see, the roots come up here. These roots come off the tree and they form, well, they actually form roots, so the roots kind of go into the ground and then come back up, which are here. But eventually they overtake the cabbage palm, or whatever tree that it's usurping energy from, for that matter, and it chokes it out and kills it. So eventually that palm tree is gonna have an encasing of this strangler fig's roots around it, and it's gonna be its own tree, which is a pretty wild thing if you think about it. So that's a strangler fig. So we're at, this is Bayshore Boulevard. So my grandparents actually lived on one of these side streets, and my dad lived right up the road here. Used to come out here a lot when I was a kid. I still actually pedal down here pretty regularly. Obviously it's an amazing ride overlooking Tampa Bay, but this is the second longest continuous sidewalk in the US. It was the first when I was growing up here. It's now the second at 4.5 miles long roughly. We're gonna be pedaling the whole length of it today and then back. But thought it a perfect time to get in a couple interview questions for Mark and kind of dig into what we had talked about earlier at Jules Verne Park, and we'll get this pedal started. So Mark, first, thanks for coming out. Appreciate you coming out early this morning and getting a session in early with us. One of the first questions I wanted to ask was to tie into Jules Verne Park back there and what you're doing now with shooting at NASA. So you've got a rocket tattoo, which I thought was a really cool tie into the ride. When did you get that, and what was the significance then when you got it?
So I got this tattoo when I was 16. And basically, I just always been in space. Like, always been a fan of, you know, seeing the shuttles launch, like when I was a kid. And
so living over there now, and you have gotten credentials before to go in and shoot photographs of some of the launches, right? So how did you manage that, and like how often are you going out there now?
So it was, honestly, it was more of knowing the right person, and then through social media, having like shooting photos already of rocket launches. I was kind of noticed, I guess you can say.
Oh, good bonnet head. They're such cool sharks, man.
Yeah, brought us out here that day. I was so bummed.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect conditions though. The tide's down and it's clear. That was great though. I love the time that we stopped. Bonnet head, get it? Sorry, I had to stop for bonnet head. I was gonna mention bonnet heads earlier because we always see them coming out here, but the tide's down and the water's clear today, so they're kind of everywhere lurking, trying to get some lunch. Such a cool shark to see out here.
That was great.
So another question I wanted to ask you too about the Space Coast and living on the Space Coast. You've lived quite a few different places, originally from Connecticut, moved to Newport Richie. You lived in Tampa for a little bit, lived in Orlando for a little bit, lived in Pittsburgh. Of all those places, you've ended up kind of on the Space Coast. So
yeah,
is that connection to your history with NASA and rockets have any connection to why you've remained there?
For me, surfing, riding, and like being a part of, like, you know, being able to watch rocket launch, especially as many now.
Yep.
Like as often as I do, like it does help keep me there.
With the rocket tattoo, you also have an Iron Maiden tattoo. So in the sequence of tattoos that you've got, when did the Maiden one pop up? It's Live After Death cover, right?
Yeah, Live After Death cover.
How old were you?
I got that at 17.
So your mom, Sally Mulville, had to give you permission, or a written permission to get that, right?
Well, it was through a friend.
Okay.
So it was more just a verbal.
Yeah.
But she was okay with it though.
So why Live After Death? Why that cover?
Honestly, it was mainly just because it was my favorite cover, but I just loved every cover. I mean, every Maiden cover is pretty awesome. Like,
sure.
Super cool art, and I've just been a fan of them since I was a child.
So with the Iron Maiden tattoo, I got someone I want you to meet. So we're gonna cut through this neighborhood here to the left, and we're gonna go visit a friend of mine that actually had done something Iron Maiden related. So yeah, we'll just cut into this neighborhood over here and go check it out. Hey, one sec. What's up, Matt? It's midnight. How are you? Great. Come on in.
Thank you.
So we are here at my buddy Prince Midnight's house. The interesting tie-in here is that Mark has this Live After Death tattoo, and Prince Midnight actually built the Iron Maiden toilet that I'm sure you've seen possibly. It's been floating around the internet. So wanted to present Prince with the Live After Death tattoo.
Dude. That's a real tattoo, man.
It's been through
Some road rash.
Oh, tons. I'm surprised it's still even there that much.
That's awesome. Yeah, so it's about 6 feet tall and 6 feet wide. And these busts down here are my face. I cast my face and used resin casts in there. And yeah, so everything else was sculpted. So I had to sculpt those are fully like autonomous, and then they're attached, and there's a rebar skeleton in the whole thing, and all welded together. So the thing is like a tank. So
did you ever use it?
It has been used, but not while I was hooked up to plumbing. So there's a whole story behind you know, what happened to the toilet and everything.
We're taking off Bayshore to finish up Mark's interview. Thanks a ton for your time.
Yeah,
Great
man.
seeing you. Appreciate you.
Nice to meet you, Mark.
We'll get the rest of this ride rolling and get Mark's interview finished before we finish the day at a session at DeSoto Skate Park. So we'll see you here shortly at the park. So tying in living on the Space Coast, Mark, and riding trails, because I know you have jumps over there that are essentially made of sand, right?
I mean, the dirt's brought in, so it's actually like, it's almost like fill dirt, but it's from deep, so it's like pretty good dirt. Okay. But yeah, it's still kind of like sand.
How did you keep the inspiration up to keep those jumps built, considering, I know having built them when I was young too, like as soon as it rains, they're gone, you gotta rebuild them. So what was the motivation to keep going?
I don't know, just honestly, just the love for jumps, the love for like riding jumps. I mean, I understood at a young age that it was a lot of hard work.
And it still is obviously your most,
Yeah,
it's what you have most fun riding bikes doing.
Yeah, if I can ride trails every day, I would.
And you're doing it all yourself? Like, are there any other riders helping you, or you doing it by yourself?
So I'm the one doing the majority. The owner of the property comes out and helps me a little bit, him and his kids, because they both ride BMX. So they'll help me from time to time when they're available. But for the most part, I just show up and, on my own time and build the jumps, keep them going.
Okay. We're about a mile from getting back to the skate park at DeSoto. We just decided to stop and hit this little bank spot right on right next to the shipyard. So get some clips here and then head to DeSoto to finish the session, see Mark off. Just finished the little over 8-mile ride to DeSoto Skate Park on the east side of Tampa. I want to thank Mark for driving out today and coming on the ride with us and letting us do the interview. Lucas for coming along, who will be catching up with him on a later episode as well. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to finish the episode with a quick session here at DeSoto Skate Park, and we'll see you soon for episode 3. This is Spoken Word. Thanks to Profile Racing and Radshare for the support. I'm Matt Coplon. Appreciate you.